Okay.
This is the closing pitch.
First off, did you see Juan Soto's comments after the World Series?
No, I briefly saw he was getting interviewed about his likelihood of staying in New York or even going over to the Mets or someone. And and I think maybe I saw someone comment or you commented he's going to go where he gets paid $50 million a year. So
yeah, that's what I was getting at is I love when players, I have to say the politically right thing, but in all honesty, how many teams can actually sign that guy?
Yeah, not many.
I mean,
not many, and I don't even think these days they probably want to. I think those.
Well, I feel like the track record is bad. A household name is technically not a great thing.
Well, you want to know something funny? I saw another tweet before we started. It said how the movie Moneyball has not aged very well. Number one, the Oakland A's are no more. Number two, the two richest teams in baseball just went to the World Series, and it looks like that's going to continue. And then it said something about Jonah Hill's character or something makes terrible trades in the future or something like that.
I just think Moneyball actually it's the next iteration of it where players are being paid what they should be being paid based on what they're actually doing on the field.
Well, that's what that is now, except for a handful of teams that have the ability to overpay.
Yeah, or back in the day, in the early 2000s, example Cardinals, where they just went on a spending spree, and it was basically all the players that were household names.
Sure.
And you had the who's who on the team.
Sure.
Now it's not like that. I feel like it's more of who are the guys that are actually producing outside of the Juan Sotos and the Shoheis who are ungodly at what they do.
But they're still, look at those guys though. Those guys, I think most players are going to get paid based on they put all your information, your career stats, your last 3 years of stats, whatever, your future cast of stats, and they're going to plug that into a system and say, beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, you are worth $3.758 million a year. Okay, for most. But then you got guys like Shohei. How do you put a price tag on the sales he's going to do for you, let alone what he does on the field, let alone the international market, let alone all the other things that he's going to bring to the table? And there's very few of those guys running around because MLB does in my opinion, a horrible job of marketing their stars. They're not like the NFL, the NBA, who really market their stars really well. And I think MLB guys in general are less likely to get out in front of the camera and do those types of things. And just because I think that's what baseball players are. They're kind of a little less not camera shy, but they're not putting themselves out there crazy. So for those handful of guys that their stats match up with their stardom, those are the guys that are going to be getting paid that kind of buku money.
Yeah, it's like the Tim Tebow signing. It was not even a production signing. It was more of we're going to sell jerseys.
Sure.
There's
publicity.
There's a story behind it, and then Shohei basically had the Tim Tebow effect times 10 because of his abilities.
Times 100.
His abilities are stupid.
And the international market.
I saw him when he was an Angel playing against the Dodgers last year, and I saw him swing and miss, and it was still impressive.
Sure.
Just how he was getting out of the box on foul balls and stuff like that. But he is a big human being that can move fast.
Had 30 stolen bases.
He's Jose Canseco without the steroids.
Yeah.
That's what he is. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit taller, I think. I don't know.
He's a freak show. He is a freak show.
Okay, so what is it that you want to talk about? We got a couple topics here.
Throw some at me.
I think dad coaches versus paid coaches, and then what is daddy ball? I think that's a really good topic for this conversation. Just because I feel like dad coaches get a really bad rap. And obviously there's some teams out there where the dad puts his kid at shortstop and bats third.
Sure.
And he doesn't deserve that. Well, but I do think that the overall narrative around dad coaches is not a great take by most people.
Well, I hear it all the time because I have a ton of conversations with different people, and the one narrative that continuously comes out there is I want to separate my son from daddy ball. I want to get out of daddy ball. So what daddy ball is in most references is there's a there's a nepotism being played by the dad coach of the team towards his son, and the assistant coaches do the same things to their son. They never come out of the lineup. They never get yelled at. They get to bat in the middle of the order no matter their performance. They're always the ones pitching, and everybody else's kids kind of get the blunt end of the shaft, if you will. They're the ones who are tossed to the wayside and viewed in those parents' eyes as they're not as important as the dad coach's sons.
So it's not Moneyball based on production.
No.
It's based off of Daddy Ball.
Yep.
Off of political. Oh, you found Siri
I didn't
found
even
something
ask her.
found Daddy Ball on the web. Well, actually, with that said, what is Daddy Ball? Type in Daddy Ball in Google. Let's just see what it comes up with. Daddy ball is an informal term that refers to a situation where a parent, often the father, coaches their child's youth sports team and favors their child over the other players. The favoritism can manifest in a number of ways. The coach child plays the most desirable position. The coach child gets more playing time. The coach's child bats in the prime spot in the lineup. The coach's child pitches the big game when when there are better options. Golly, great job, Gemini.
This is AI generated.
Wow, that was like spot on. I couldn't have said it any better.
So I hear this literally all the time, and it's been a term that's literally, I mean, this is not a new term. This has been around for literally years and years. And
would you say that majority of the time that is the case, or do you think majority of the time is that there's one disgruntled parent that gets mad and then they start looking for weaknesses in the team and finding the slip-ups by the coach and then uses an excuse to get out of the team?
For sure, I'm not saying that there aren't situations where this occurs. That probably happens. To the amount that it's being said it's happening, I don't buy into it. And I often, like, a lot of times the conversations I have with people, they go off and they start yelling about daddy ball situations that they're currently in, and they don't want to be about daddy ball. But then guess what they want to do? Start their own team for their son. So it's like, but I'm not going to do that daddy ball stuff. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be fair and this, but it's the same thing. And so anyhow, I just, I always kind of push back a little bit on this narrative because, obviously we've been in this for a little bit, with 15 years involved with this program. And for again, I'm talking in the vast majority of dad coaches that we've had. I number one, I don't think that most parents quite understand the amount of time it takes to go into managing a team, thinking about lineups, practice plans, navigating a schedule, just the whole general approach, talking to parents, leading that team through a year-long season. And most parents are like, well, they show up and they coach and they practice. I guarantee that most coaches are sitting at their work on their lunch hour, going over lineups and thinking about different ways to get different kids involved and helping kids succeed, et cetera. They put their heart and soul into, what they're doing, and they get involved in it. Like, I think most parents don't understand that coaches at the youth level, the dads, number one, they don't get paid. So they're genuinely just volunteering their time, and let alone they're volunteering their time to more times than not going into what could be a semi-hostile environment if things don't go well. They're putting themselves out there for players, for opposing coaches, for teams, for parents, whatever it might be, to possibly cause headache and drama that honestly most guys don't need. Most parents don't need. Women and men involved. They could be spending a lot of their time that they do coaching, doing other things with their families or things on their own or bettering their businesses or whatever it is that they're doing. They have that choice, and they've chosen to take a leadership role for a team and lead them through a successful season, whatever that may look like. And I think that often gets overlooked. Secondly, what I always bring up is I don't think you quite understand the alternative, because a dad coach is invested. not only in his son, but generally there's his son's friends or his daughter's friends on a softball team. On that team, they've built relationships with those families, etc., and they have invested interest in seeing that team succeed and leading them through a good situation. And they are, again, putting so much time off the field into that success. So they're gonna go above and beyond in so many different ways and look for the different tournaments out there to play and different experiences for the families, and putting together a tournament that all the families can go on vacation with and have a blast, and think about that for lifelong experiences. And then lastly, they don't think of the other side where they're like, well, I'd love to have a hired coach who's bipartisan, nonpartisan, and doesn't have a kid on the team, etc. Okay, that's fine. You're going to have to pay that coach. Number one, so your costs are going up, and you have to understand that you're paying that coach for a certain amount of time. So whatever time you tell that coach to commit to, that's pretty much what he's going to do. And for most youth teams, unless you're paying absorbent amounts of money, you're probably getting a younger guy who doesn't have a full-time position, who's not doing it on the side as a hustle. And so he's only going to put the amount of time he has to get that team going and kind of navigate the season. But he's not going to go above and beyond for $3,000 to $5,000 in a year-long span. That's just not realistic. And I'm not saying that's right, wrong, otherwise. I'm saying that's the real world. And so you get what you pay for, but you're going to pay more to probably get less from a paid coach for a year-long experience, unless you want to pay 15, 20, 25 grand and have all these literal requirements that you're going to give, 20 hours a week to this team throughout the entire year. And even at that point, I think you're drastically underpaying that guy.
Yeah. So I think there's two things there for me, is that the volunteer coach is probably going to put a way more effort into the team, plain and simple, because they have an invested interest into it, because they have a kid involved, right? And then they have their friends involved. So they're going to put a lot more time and effort into it. The second part is a paid coach. You have to understand, a lot of people think like, oh, we'll just do it exactly like the high school clubs, and we'll have a paid coach and he'll be able to take care of everything because they do a great job. What you don't understand, though, is that high school coach that's getting paid by the club and those players that are paying for that coach to coach their team, that guy is also doing private lessons that allows him to be able to do that and put more effort into that team.
Well, and let's get on the cost side for a second, because I also think that most parents don't quite understand the cost and the time involved in it. There's two narratives that the travel ball world, whether it's the youth level or the high school level, is getting way too expensive. Like, it's way too much to play for a year-long season. And I get it. It's a lot on a family. But then at that same person who takes that same narrative wants a paid coach, and they want to do something to where, let's just say a coach practices twice a week for 4 hours total. They're playing 4 games or 5 games on a weekend. That's another 15, 16 hours that they're at the field. Okay, so you're looking at 20 plus hours a week. Let's just say that's at minimum wage. Okay, and you're at 20 hours at, I don't know what it is, like $12 an hour. So you're at, what is that? Do that in your head. $240 a week, $250 a week. You're doing that at a youth level for, I don't know. Then I'm just throwing it out there. It comes up to a lot of
how many hours you'd say in a weekend?
20 hours on a weekend.
So you're looking at $248.
Yeah. And then again, I'm just saying that at minimum wage, it still creeps up there when you take into account an entire season, an entire off season of training. If you want to do it the right way and actually train these kids the right way, it comes out to a lot more than the $5,000
but that
you're
job's not a minimum wage job, because
that's what
you
I'm
have
saying.
An expertise in it.
That's what I'm saying. So it doesn't necessarily, the whole equation doesn't make sense. Yeah. And I just think that is that's a double-edged sword when parents start complaining about that, and I don't think they're actually asking some of the right questions. Instead of, it's very easy to look at some situation, because situations are going to arise, whether it's intentional by the coach or unintentional by the coach throughout the season. there's situations that are going to rise no matter how good that coach is that parents and players aren't going to like. And it can be totally out of his control, totally in his control.
But the hours aren't just the games and the practices. Like, you have hours where you're pre-planning games, pre-planning practices. You also have conversations with parents. Like,
That's what I'm saying. A lot goes into it.
There's been so many times I've had conversations at 10 at night going all the way to midnight, and my wife is yelling at me and be like, why are you talking to this person?
100%. My phone rings at any and all hours of the day for any type of reasons. And that's okay. That's what we're in. But I don't think most people understand that. But it just, to me, daddy ball as a term is often a cop-out for people who aren't willing to have those uncomfortable conversations and actually have a human-to-human interaction with the coach. I think that more times than not, that's a secondary side conversation that happens between disgruntled parents or whatever, and it becomes a bigger storm and issue than it ever should be when a simple conversation could have been asked and had of, hey, I have XYZ situation that I don't feel was treated correctly. I feel like my son or whatever was not. I'd love to hear your perspective on this, coach. Instead of having that type of conversation, maybe the coach says, oh, wow, I really didn't know that I was, maybe I was doing that. Maybe I was treating my son differently, and I apologize, and I'll do better. Or maybe that coach actually gives you a realistic, well, here's why your son didn't pitch, because we had another game coming, and he had already thrown this way, and now we were saving him for here, and we had this guy who needed to get in, and there's those million reasons that go through a coach's head, because most coaches are always planning ahead in things. They're not just not doing that. And then the parent can go, oh, I wasn't thinking about that either. Okay, cool. But it's a cop-out. It's so easy to just blame that and then go on to the next situation, like we see all the time. I think that's led to literally a real problem in the youth sport, in high school, in our sport in general, of where's our next option, and just hopping from team to team to team to team. And then it's if it's not a daddy ball issue, it's another issue. And if it's not this, it's that. And then all of a sudden we're on a next team. And by the end of our deal, we have 27 teams' uniforms in our closet. And what do we get out of it? Or what do? We tell our son that we can't stick it out. I don't know.
I think also it deals with how society is right now, where everything is picture perfect, where when I buy a product, I should totally get that every single time. And then when you're dealing with human beings, you have biases, you have human interactions. Like there's going to be problems because it's community. And sometimes when we're talking about like playing time or this coach favors this person, it's human nature. Get over it. Like, figure it out. I hate to be that person, but you have to figure it out. You have to be able to work. You have to be able to know how to handle certain people. And I've played with teams where the coaches didn't like me. And I sat the bench the whole year. But did I complain? Of course I did. But did I give it to an excuse of like, oh, this guy is doing daddy ball? Not really. It was more of like, what do I need to do? And then if the conversation didn't go my way, I just started figuring out, okay, I've committed to this team for this year. I'm not going to switch until I've completed my year. That was the contract to myself. Mm-hmm. And if I broke that contract, that would have been a snowball effect where I just completely go downhill. I have to complete that year. Once I complete that year, then I can move on to the next thing. But I mean, I've had coaches that I loved and I disagreed with them, but it didn't cause me to move on or label them as daddy ball.
I just think that, I guess, I don't like the term in general, but I understand the term exists and it's not going anywhere. I would like to see that term used as not an excuse. I would like to see that filtered down to the bottom option, and I'd like to see other options exist before that. I'd like to see, if that situation comes up in a player's head or a parent's head, number one, a conversation has to happen to actually get to the root cause or the root issue or the piece of information that maybe people are missing on both sides. After that, if for whatever reason, let's say the at-bats are so much more for the son of the dad or whatnot, and I had a child on my team and he was getting way less at-bats, I think my initial answer would be like, well, we got to go practice more. We gotta go work a little bit harder. Whether or not that's the right answer, whether you're watching blatant nepotism or not, that is, to me, that's the answer, because I'm teaching my son that, okay, right now we're not getting everything we want, but we need to go work at it to prove that. Like, I don't care how good X player is, if all of a sudden my skills improve drastically and I start doing all these things in the field, you can't ignore that. And most coaches like to win, so they'll find a way. And there's just other ways to go about that, because I think that you're setting a bad precedent. And I'm not trying to tell parents what to do. It's your child. You can do whatever you want. But I mean, I don't totally agree, because I've seen it this way too. The same kids that I grew up with that hopped around from team to team to team and school to school to school were the same guys who hop around in jobs. And it translates, because it's an out. The minute adversity hits, or the minute something happens that doesn't go your way, you look for the way out and onto something that's supposed to be great. And if you ever notice, I mean, those parents that flop those teams and take their kid to another team, the minute they show up, this is all roses. This is the greatest thing ever. And then about halfway through, or at the start of the season, issues start coming up. And that's that cycle that happens over and over. And I just think that's teaching people the wrong thing.
I will say this. I've learned a lot from the players that have stayed with us, and I've learned a ton of the players who have left us. And the ones that I respect the most are the ones that don't complain or give an excuse on why they're leaving. They say, we just need more innings. We need to play more. And then the conversation goes, well, what happened? And then they explain their position. I respect that way more than someone calling out, name calling, or labeling it one thing and saying that I wasn't treated fairly. It just comes down to, I need to play more. I need more innings, need more at bats. And if that's the case, that is a really good route. And I feel like if you're not getting the innings, then definitely take the next step to a different team. But I wouldn't be that person that just completely labels something and complains about it, because whenever I hear daddy ball, and I think that's where majority of people, and they won't say this out loud, is that you sound like a complainer and you sound like a victim.
Sure. And again, it's not every situation, no matter how much information you know about it going into it, there's no crystal ball in this thing that tells you it's going to 100% work out in anything you do. So you try it, you give it your all. At the end of the year, you look back on it and you weigh your pros and cons, and you decide on what your future holds. And if a person, a player, a parent can have that honest conversation and leave feelings and leave like the anger and everything out of it, and just have a very controlled conversation and be like, this is why, then at the end of the day, I can live with that. That's fine, because on our end, that can give us things that we could work on too. Because again, I'm not saying everyone's perfect. No coach is perfect. They try to do a lot of really good things, and more things than probably most people know, to make things successful. And they wear stuff for days, losses, bad situations that they could have handled differently. They wear that, and most parents and players don't understand that they, once they leave the field, they're thinking about that a lot. But those are also things that coach and that family, or that coach, needs to hear. Because I think any good coaches, most good coaches at least, would take that into consideration for a change in the future to become a better coach.
Coach Ballgame had a really interesting thing at the World Series. So he went around to each player and did they had the media day, and he went around and asked them youth baseball questions. Yeah. And one of the questions that he asked, I forgot who it was, but he asked him about playing. And one of the players said, never force your kid to play, and find the love in the game. And if you can find the love in the game, it becomes a very beautiful thing, and you end up growing with the game, and it teaches you a lot of valuable lessons. That's a huge, huge thing. And I feel like when you start labeling this, and then your player overhears you saying that, it automatically starts killing that love for the game in an indirect way. It might not seem like that in the beginning, and then you'll have a complaint fest, and then you all feel really good for that short term. But then as time goes on, you start seeing those habits kind of reforming. I noticed that when I was playing my junior year, and me and my mom and my dad would have a complaint fest about like playing time and stuff. Like it would just be our session. Then my mom would say, "All right, no more complaining. We're done. We've done our complaint box. It's over. It doesn't leave this car." And that really stuck with me because it didn't transfer into the dugout, and it didn't transfer into the teammates I had. And one thing that my mom always told me is like, you're going to be the first one out of the dugout. After we did the whole complaining session, she would always say this: you're going to be the first one out of the dugout, and you're always going to give high fives to the people that you don't like.
Control the controllables.
And literally, I did that every single time, and it got me through that season. And it ended up, I was just a pitcher only for that team, which all said and done, that I was supposed to be both position and pitcher, but the coach just kept me as pitcher only. I ended up throwing a no-hitter my second to last game, and then I was 1 out away from another no-hitter on my last game playing for them. And so I think the only way that happened was being able to have the complaint box in the car, and then saying the complaint box is over. No more talking about it until we get to open that complaint box again after the next game.
100%. No, I mean, it's a great example of you could have sat there and literally been focused only on yourself and the things that are not going your way, and that would have done you no good, and ultimately probably would have made your performances a lot less, not as good as they were towards the end of the year, because you would just been, the minute one bad thing would have happened, a call doesn't go your way, it was snowballed. Or you focus on other things and being a good teammate and all the things that you can control, and what happens to your mind in that situation. You're not thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about the things that the coach isn't giving you. You're thinking about the team, and now all of a sudden you're up there and you're pitching for the team, and now your success is happening a little bit better. But it happens all the way. But what you were saying earlier is literally, what the MLB player said is the have-tos versus the want-tos. I always think about it that way in terms of how a young player characterizes his baseball career. Is he saying, "Oh, do I have to go to practice?" Or, "Dad, I want to go practice." Or is he saying, "We have to have another tournament this weekend," or, "Oh, I'm so excited. I want to go to this tournament this weekend." It's building that love first. The love has to be there first, and the enjoyment and the excitement, and it's not all about the winning. There's so much more variables that go into that than the X's and O's and the training and the wins and the losses. The love has to come first, ultimately.
Do you remember like when you first like I absolutely love this game, like I'm obsessed with it? Like, do you remember that first time that happened?
Kinda. So, I mean, I think as a really, really young, I think I got introduced to, my parents my dad was from another country, and my mom only played a couple sports growing up. And so they just knew that from a young age, because I don't remember this when I was super young, but I loved anything with a ball. Like, that's just what I gravitated towards. And so I was always doing something in the house, or when I got old enough to get outside and do something with a ball, that's just what I gravitated towards. So they ultimately, put me in, whatever local church league or something. We had a church just up the street from us. We didn't go to it, but they offered teams, like a little basketball league, a little soccer league, a little baseball league. So that was my first introduction into baseball. I just enjoyed learning it, but I think because I used to, whatever I did, I'd watch it a lot. So I would watch, the Cardinals and everything else like that. So I inherently, I think at a young age, just knew the ins and outs of the game more, just like simple stuff, like where to go to the baseball or with the baseball when it was hit to you, how to run bases a little bit. Not that I knew a lot, but I probably knew more than some of my peers because I watched it all the time. Like I was like obsessed. So maybe I started loving it there, but I just had a play where this was the funniest little play this is the first thing I can ever remember as a young kid. And I was playing third base, and there was runners on first and second, no outs, and a little pop-up, like a barely, like not a pop-up, it's this like 5-year-old baseball, but something was hitting the air towards the shortstop-ish, like in between me and the shortstop. And I cut over and both runners start running. And I go and I catch the ball in front of the shortstop, and I've already passed the guy on second base. So I run to second base and I tag it. The guy who ran off first base is in no man's land. The coaches are yelling, "Get back, get back." And I run him down and I tag him with the ball. I didn't know that that's a pretty rare play. A single-handed triple play is pretty rare in this game. And someone kept telling me that after that, like, that never happens. And it's 5-year-old baseball. That should never happen anywhere except for 5-year-old baseball. Where
But your ability to know, like, I got to go get that guy, then this guy.
Yeah. And, like, I can, to this day, vividly remember that exact play in my head. I can't remember a lot of youth baseball, but I'll remember that play. And it's the funniest thing because I was a shy kid then. And so, like, I got a lot of attention from the parents and the other players and the players on our team after that game. And I was so scared and so nervous. And my mom said, like, you got in the car and were like almost like crying and shaking and ran away from the coaches. And I didn't remember that, but I remembered like a sense of feeling like, wow, I did something cool. And so that's like, to me, the first moment where I was like, yeah, I want to learn it. I want to play it more. I want to be more involved in it and practice.
Like, do you remember when the first time you wanted to play college baseball?
I don't know, man. I was a pretty aloof high school kid. I played a lot. I played 3 sports throughout high school, so I was more interested in what I was doing at the time. I started, I was always a good player, whether it was, I played freshman ball as a freshman. I got to play a little JV as a freshman. I played mainly JV all my sophomore year. And I was always one of the better players on the team, both pitching and hitting. I started getting some like St. Louis accolades a little bit as a junior. Like I had a decent year, like a second team all conference guy or something like that.
You never like targeted it? You never targeted it and you're like, oh, this is what I want to do?
No. Other than like we had a really, really good team. I always played Legion ball. So like, and Legion ball was still okay. There was like some dudes who would go to college off those teams, like maybe 20, 25%. But it was an outlet for guys who didn't want to, there wasn't many travel teams back then. But our high school team had a lot of guys who went on to play college baseball, especially at the Division I level. And so I think my friends started getting attention earlier than I did for sure, because they were better. And that's when I started thinking to myself, like, well, I play football, I play basketball, I play baseball. I know I'm not good at basketball. Like I didn't start as a junior. I averaged like 2 points. I'm probably not gonna play college basketball. I'm a 6'5" white guy who is okay at basketball, but I'm all right in high school. So I'm probably, let's X-nay that. Football, I started as a junior. I was all right. Like, I guess I could get stronger. I got a big build. I would think about these things and I'd be like, but like, I don't know. I don't think I'm good enough for like big time college football. I didn't really know anything else because, I'm a Mizzou guy, which we've commented on before. And so I don't know. I'm definitely the best at baseball and I think I'm pretty good. But like, I knew nothing, man. Like nothing. My parents knew nothing. And I'm not saying bad about it. Yeah. We knew absolutely nothing. I mean, I was such an aloof kid that I would literally show up to the field and I could have been playing the Yankees for all I cared. I wouldn't have known a difference. I didn't pay attention to any of that stuff. Like, I really didn't. I just knew that I was playing that day and let's go try to beat them. I was super competitive. And I worked at it, but like I didn't know. Like I didn't have my first pitching coach until senior year, and I paid for it myself because a friend of mine told me that it would help me. Like I didn't know anything, and so I don't think it started happening for me at the college level until like maybe some of my friends started doing it. I started wondering, but at that point, I still didn't like send any letters or email. Wasn't even really a thing. Like I didn't do anything about it. I was just kind of waiting along until whenever it happened.
Yeah, I kind of like go back and forth on like, is that the best route sometimes, like not knowing?
For me, it was for sure.
Because I feel like sometimes you get kind of stressed out. That's where it kind of kills the game a little bit
But
for some players. Like, I mean, I feel like my personality, I have to know where my endpoint is. Like, I have to know where my endpoint is. If I know where my North Star is, like I can go attack that hill. So I can't be that like going through the wind type of thing. Not saying that's what you were doing, but like being ignorant to the whole like concept of it. But maybe majority are probably better that way of not knowing.
I also think it was a completely different era.
That's true.
So much less information out there, so much less not less competition
Maybe
for spots.
That's probably the better way of saying is like the more information is probably not the best at certain points.
Sure.
Like, because then you start realizing the monumental task that you have been given yourself, which scares you, which is great. Like, that's a great thing. But I feel like there's only a select few people that are really excited about the monumental task.
Well, right now, present day, I always go back and forth on if I should even bring up college baseball to like freshmen.
Yeah, it's kind of the same way here.
It's just,
I want them to have fun.
I think you're technically doing them a disservice without at least blanketly covering that level, and that could be in the future. But like, they're at such a young age, even as 15 and some really old, young 16-year-olds. Dude, I knew nothing about life. I knew nothing about what I wanted to do. My focus was on what I was going to do with my friends on Friday night. Like, I had no clue what was going on. I didn't know my future. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And if an adult would have come and told me, or my parents would have been like, do you want to play college baseball? I'm like, I don't know. Sure. Yeah. Well, what do you want to do? What do you want to study? I don't know. Why are we talking about this?
Yeah.
Like, that would have been my answer. And so I think from a standpoint of learning to love the game, and like, I think at those levels, or for sure younger levels, like, you need to fall in love with the game, learn to compete. Like, don't look at the end goal yet, because like that shouldn't be your focus right now. There's times and places for that when it comes to fruition. And certainly nowadays, I think it benefits the young athlete and the family to be educated on it more prior to that happening. But too often now, I think it becomes more feeling like a job to get there. Like, I'm having, at younger ages to build a resume to then, catch the attention of a college coach in the future. And if I don't do this, then my resume looks bad and my whole world's over before it ever even started. And I just think we're looking at the wrong things at that point.
That's one of the mistakes I made early in my coaching career, is like trying to spread the gospel and spread the word of like, this is a hard task. This is what you need to do. This is how you do it. And not being respectful of let the kids be kids and let them grow up the way they should grow up, like how they've been growing up for millennia.
Yep.
And sometimes when they're ready, they'll come to you and they'll start talking about it more. Like, I still remember one of my guys who committed early, and I distinctly remember not talking to him about it. And the reason I didn't talk to him about it is because he was so young, and what could he really say about it? And I didn't want to go down that path of like, you've got to work your tail off because this thing is going to be so much harder than you actually think it is. I did not want to do that to him. I wanted him just to keep playing and enjoying the moment, and then make the adjustment when he gets to that age.
Yeah, and I think that
which I think like the NCAA did a good job of moving the early commitment back, because like those 14s and 15-year-olds don't have no idea.
For sure, one of the best things they've done in a long time. I think it's still very unrealistic, even as a 17, 18-year-old kid, for a coach to think that they're ready to talk to you about college sports or anything like that, or bring that conversation to you. I think that it's and I think you only learn this through going through it as a coach and actually having quite a bit of an experience with it. I think it's your job to kind of watch their path, because you've seen athletes over time go through that similar thing. It's your job to understand at what point are they mentally and physically and emotionally ready to at least begin the conversation. and it's not throwing the whole boat at them at that point and overwhelming them. It's, I've seen you before. All right, you used to be Joe, you used to be Steve, you used to be whoever that I've had in the past, and now you're doing things in this, and I feel like it's an appropriate time to at least start that conversation.
I feel like parents are going to ask, like, well, how will I know?
You won't.
I disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
You will know when they start being curious and looking stuff up on the internet and then asking you questions to get your take on it to see what you know about it.
Some kids.
You don't think there's a lot of kids that are curious and they'll ask their parents?
Some kids.
Interesting.
Less than 20%.
Wow. Why? Do you think it's just because of the relationship or what?
I think that there are very few kids who nowadays have the wherewithal to look into the future and try to look up information that's relevant to what they want to do. Like,
but what about curiosity though? Like,
no. Like, well, what are you? I guess what are you asking? Are you saying like curiosity as I'll like, turn on a college baseball game and watch it?
No, curiosity and asking them like, hey, what did you do in college? Like, where did you go to school? What type of things were you into high school? Like when those type of questions to their parents.
Less than 20 because kids don't ask questions in general anymore. They're reliant on being told. They're reliant on the overload of information that they're given these days and that they can get in such a short amount of time, I think has killed curiosity in kids a lot. Whether it's in school, whether it's in a sport, a training facility, because they have access to so many things, they're just going to feel like they have access to that anytime they want, and it kills curiosity. When it was back in the day when information wasn't as readily available as it is today, I feel like in order to actually answer a question or even have a thought come up in your head, you would feel like I gotta go search this out. Like, what is this thing? Like, what is college baseball? When I was in high school, like I only had very few routes. Okay. Mm-hmm. I could get on the internet. I did have the internet. I'm not that old. I could kind of look up a few things. I could go to a game.
But isn't that innately human though, to be curious? Like, I feel like you can't kill that. You can't beat out a player's curiosity.
Let me see.
A person's curiosity.
Let me ask you this, because you have a million conversations with kids as I do, day in, day out. How many kids openly come up to you, start a conversation, and ask you a question?
I feel like they're more scared.
That they are, for sure.
Because I'm a stranger.
Even if they're not a stranger.
To a certain degree.
Even if they're not a stranger. Now, to me, well, you go ahead and answer.
I'm trying to think of like over the years and how that curiosity is. I've helped players get that curiosity out, but then I've been the person to get that curiosity out.
There you go. You have to open that door.
I mean, but I would say this though. As a player, when I was taking lessons, I rarely asked instructors questions at certain
because you're told, you're taught, because you're reliant on that.
So do you think that's a problem with coaching in general? Like instructors are not getting their players to understand to ask questions throughout the training session? Or even teachers in general? We're getting into a deeper conversation here, but just like, do you think that is more of the teacher's problem, not the kid's problem?
Yes. It's your job as an adult in whatever situation you are to ask them questions of why. Like, I do this all the time, and I'm not tooting my own horn or anything, but in order, like, okay, I could tell a kid, do this with your throwing motion because you're doing this wrong, and this will help you out. Okay. And the kid, because I'm labeled as a person of expertise in that area, will just inherently say, well, that's got to be right. But did he grasp the concept? No. He understood that I pinpointed a problem. He doesn't know what that problem was. He doesn't know why that problem was making him do something wrong. I then told him something that can correct that problem that theoretically should give him a benefit, but he doesn't know what that benefit is. But he'll inherently do what I tell him. So if I leave that there, all I'm teaching him to do is be a robot. And obviously kids are relying on their parents for guidance. Obviously kids are relying on coaches for their guidance. Obviously kids are relying on their teachers and friends for guidance. Kids these days have gotten so accustomed to just being reliant on others that they've lost the understanding of why. So what I try to do all the time is I'll explain it just like I did. Okay, hey, in my opinion, here's the wrong, and here's what it can cause, etc. And then I go, here's the fix, but I want you to tell me why that could possibly be wrong. And I always preface it with, you can be wrong in this. Like, just throw stuff out there. Think about it for a second. Like, I'm wrong a million times a day. I'm okay with being wrong a million times a day. Tell me what you think on this. And I'll sit there in silence until they give me any blanket answer. I don't care what it is, but I want them to actually think. I want to teach them to be thinkers. And I'm trying to open up that door for future conversation so that they can literally come and ask, hey, I had a kid yesterday. It was really cool. He came up and said, I can't remember what he called it, but he goes, Coach, have you ever heard of like a Lanner two-seam? I think it's called that. I go, no. And he goes, well, I was watching a Trevor Bauer video and he came up with this, and I know where he's going because like Bauer's just crazy analytically driven and biomechanical driven. So he creates his own stuff. And he goes, and I was curious because it was doing this X, Y. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And I told him, well, be careful with that. Like, cause you might not throw like Trevor Bauer, et cetera, but that wasn't even the point. Like the point was that kid took time out to try to learn something new to better himself. And that curiosity was great. But what I'm saying at the start of this conversation is that kid is 1 out of 20 for me. That just doesn't happen these days. So I think as a coach or as an influential adult figure, it's your job to not necessarily make your kid reliant on the information that you have, even if you know it's 100% correct and it's going to work in the right way for them. It's your job to start off with some of that information, but then make them understand why and try to have them join the conversation.
When we had Drew as an intern and we were talking about like conversations, and I was trying to teach him something, and I gave him one of those questions where it's like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, let's just say we're talking about a lesson and I say, what is the number one thing that helps you swing a bat? That question is so general.
Open-ended.
It's a very open-ended question. And then typically what a player will say, will give their example and say, oh, it's your hands. And then I say, no, it's not. It's your core. It makes you feel stupid, right? Mm. And Drew was telling me that, like, I hate it when you do that to me. You give me those open-ended questions because whatever I answer is going to be wrong. And that, when he said that, it completely opened my eyes on how I'm teaching players, because you're definitely right. It kills that curiosity right away. And I'm sure that a lot of instructors use that tactic because it's a way of trying to get the player to talk. But then when they don't answer it right, you punish them for it and making them feel stupid. And you don't realize that you're making them feel stupid. And so ever since that conversation, when a player they can give me whatever answer. Let's just say they say, oh, it's your feet. I'm like, well, no, that's a really good thought. Like, I could see where your thought was going on that, because like your feet do this, X, Y, and Z. And that definitely helps with your stability and all that. But have you ever thought about this?
There you go.
That is a way better approach. And it probably triggers in their head. I haven't asked my players this. I probably should. But it probably triggers in their head like, oh, yeah, like, that is a good point. I never thought about it that way. That's how I should approach it.
Sure.
So yeah, it probably is your core that helps you swing the bat.
Sure.
You know, it just. I know we took a huge tangent off of Daddy
That's
Ball
all right.
into actually teaching, but then we're kind of
come up with back, this subject title line for this
coming
one.
back into actual teaching and the love of the game. But I never thought about that way, as like the curiosity is being killed. I would think that human nature innately is more curious than not curious. So when someone asks, like if they're really wanting to do something, they're going to start asking their parents questions first and then start searching the internet. But I'm guessing nowadays it's now more going towards, I'm going to search the internet, then ask questions later.
I'm also saying, I'll leave it with this. I'm also saying that curiosity isn't killed. I'm saying curiosity is cured a lot quicker these days, which innately kills curiosity. And what I mean by
say that again?
What I mean by that is this. So curiosity is cured so much more quickly these days, which innately will kill curiosity in the future.
So instead of the curiosity killed the cat killed curiosity.
back in my day,
there's your title.
back in my day, you had to really work to find out information. You had to go in a lot of different places to figure out, some stuff. So you had to work at it because information wasn't so readily available. Nowadays, no matter what it is, you can pretty much get an answer as quick as you want. And so your curiosity is cured. And so instead of, there are sometimes information is a lot tougher to gather or answers are a lot tougher to gather. And if you don't get your answer right away, there's not that innate feeling to keep going. There's that I'm on to the next thing. And so
do you think that's why you remembered more things back then because you were stuck with that question for an extremely long time trying to solve it? And then once you solved it, you remembered it a lot better?
100%. And so I think that the path of curiosity has been lost. So that led me back to why we were talking about this of kids and younger adults not necessarily wanting to put more time into something that they view as something that they could either get really fast or that they don't want to put the time and effort into doing. But it's still your job to open the door. It's still your job to try to, especially in the sport that we live in with players, the end formula still to be a really successful player at this sport is to ultimately be that guy who's going to fall in love with your own process and your craft and learning things on your own and asking questions. You can only get so far, no matter if you have the absolute number one coach in the world, the best instructors, the best training facilities, the best club, the best whatever it is. That will only get you so far, and the missing variable is you and your ability to literally be your own advocate and go out there and tweak things and work at things and learn new things and become the best you coach of you possible.
I want to leave it with this question because I think this is a good question to ponder. What do you think is the magic formula for a player to get to college? Or to get to pro ball or wherever the highest point at? What do you think is the magic formula that gives them a fighter's chance? Because I feel like the mainstream thinks that I have to, what you just said, I have to have the right club, I have to have the right training, I have to have the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, all that matters, but what do you think the magic formula is?
Tough question, Spiker. First and foremost, love and enthusiasm for it, and you go nowhere without it. So that's the main. That if there's a little squared above one of your numbers in that equation, that's love and enthusiasm squared. That has to be the highest variable. 2 would be surrounding yourself in the best opportunities, and it's not the best opportunities money can buy. It's the best people. It's the people that care the most about you and the people that can translate the most information to you. 3, curiosity. Wanting to learn about it, wanting to learn the different aspects of the sport that you're playing and the different aspects of your game. And 4, fearlessness. Literally being not fearful of anything, adversity, competition, whatever, that undeniable resiliency to overcome.
I would take that same route. I would label it down to 3, as you were talking. Is ignorance, curiosity, and enthusiasm. I don't think you can lab grow this thing. Meaning, as an adult and being like the orchestra, you can provide the resources, but I don't think you could make it a lab grown experiment to where you can make it happen automatically. Where it's like, oh, if I do X, Y, Z, this is going to definitely happen. You can just provide the resources and provide the loving support, and then it all comes down to that kid, which is he's got to have some type of ignorance a little bit of like the task that is at hand, and that he loves it so much, and then he has the curiosity to figure it all out. So, guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. We'll end it right here. Go ahead and subscribe if you can, and then give us a like on the YouTubes. And then also Spotify has a comment section. Just realized that. So if you want to comment, you can. And we will catch you in the next episode.
See you guys.